Alright, so I'm broken. I'm broken. I'm completely broken. Don't listen to me, don't follow me. Yet at the same time, it's my responsibility to give testimony. And everything's happening in the world today the way it's happening. Everything with Russia, Ukraine, the West, and everything that's going on in the West. So there are these deep divisions in the West and in the West of the West, the Americas. Why is it called the Americas? There's this deep division within the West, and then there's this deep division. And it's peculiar, and there's a recent Jordan Peterson podcast that talks about where Jordan Peterson very astutely, and it's the only place I've heard it, and it needs way more expansive discussion, is why is Russia not considered part of the West? And the way he posed the question, intuitively was, why does Russia not consider itself part of the West? But the other question is, why is Russia by the West not considered the West? Because in early biblical times, the idea of the East didn't even extend as far as Russia, right? So the West was way west from what we consider the West now. History matters deeply. I'm not trying to be an apologist, but I do. I do. I see the Russian side as well, and here's why. People boil things down to politics. People boil things down to nuclear weapons, right? Here's why, almost above all, why I respect Russia. They live in the cold. There's a huge fucking city in Russia where it's like negative 60 degrees below zero. It ranges from like 16 above to negative 60 below. That's their year. And there's an enormous industrial city upon it. Now I live in New Hampshire, USA. I'm 45 and I'm on my way out. Or at least that's how I feel. Well, I'm 44. I'll be 45 in a few weeks, and, I'm going down. Right? Yet there's 60-year-olds living in, I don't know what the name of the town is in Russia, where it's 60 degrees below zero. If you don't keep your car running 24/7, it freezes, and you have to wait until it's 20, which where I live would be cold, in order for it to get warm enough for you to start it up. There's so many people there. And same with Ukraine. And in a very big way, this is what's crazy. The East versus the West. There are 2 points to balance between the East and the West. And they are so antithetical to the conversation. If you can figure out the nexus, if you can figure out the web, if you can figure out the conjoined matrices of what could be called the dichotomy between Hawaii and Russia, where East meets West. The entirety of Russia, which spans half a hemisphere, and the entirety of Hawaii. Which is a disbursement whose land holds, as a percentage of land, nothing. Yet there it is. Where East meets West. If one could reconcile Hawaii and Russia, all of Russia. I mean, people, man. People. I hate this I hate, and that's what's so awesome and important about today is that on my phone, like even while I was at work, I just like, I go to work, I plug in my phone, I turn on YouTube, I go click, 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 there's a video, plunk, play, boom, information, right, about what's going on around the world. So here I am scraping out horsehair plaster and this old house, this old condo, this quote-unquote second home of people who are slightly better off than me, even though most people I think in my situation would be like, they're so much bigger than me, though I realize how big gets from here. When you're on the bottom strata, just those few millimeters of the Great Pyramid mean a great deal. So I'm a few millimeters up on that Great Pyramid. Don't think I underappreciate that. Foul as I am, But I have a great deal of compassion for Russia. Because they really have. There's a legitimate claim. And so, if you're into geopolitics, you have all kinds of arguing points for or against what I'm saying. Right? And if you're just among the regular population, so I guess in this instance, in certain instances, I call upon different populations. Sometimes I call upon the religious. Sometimes I call upon the philosophical. Sometimes I call upon the mathematical. In a very low resolution, but with great heart and enthusiasm. Notice I didn't say passion. But that's in the mix. It's too convenient, right? There's that movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Some of the narrative has changed from the Al Gore-ism. There's global warming, there's global climate change, but then there's pollution. Pollution, no one can deny. So there was acid rain. Is there or isn't there? Okay, we've affected it. Okay, it's global warming. Oh no, wait, it's global climate change. Okay, oh wait. And then there's also the papers on It's indisputable, you know, cloud seed harvesting or seed cloud harvesting. It's indisputable science. There it is. It happens. You can see it with your own eyes, document it with your own phone, even today. If you see a line in the sky, set up your camera. Period. However many gigabytes you got, you'll get it. You know? So that's a fact. But I'm not even saying it's nefarious because we don't know. We lay people, we who work, I'm a house painter. I have no right to talk about any of this. But until the day comes when all of us talk about all the things that matter and learn as much, like, until the day comes, and I'm not there, I'm not saying I'm there, but I'm climbing there, I'm getting there. The things I've learned in the last 12 years passively over YouTube and like before YouTube, you know, before 2006. For me, it was like from 2003 to 2006, back when it was Google videos mostly. YouTube was there, but YouTube was like short little clips, junk, you know, like TikTok, you know. But like Google video was the bang, man. It had the shit before Khan Academy, before Numberphile, like before the Royal Academy had a channel, you know. Back when it was like all conspiracy theory shit and like one dude who gave one math video on the power of exponentiation. That was it. 2003. On the regular Google Play interweb, never mind all the BitTorrent, what was that, Napster, BitTorrent, Napster shit back in the day. You wouldn't believe what was there then. And you wouldn't believe what was there then before that. Even in dial-up. Anyway, now here we are. One of the things that doesn't come up at all, and this is a non sequitur, but super important, and I'm appealing to you to please coalesce this thought into your imagination. Think about it, please. The only reason I'm appealing to you in this way is because I haven't heard it brought up, is that Russia's cold. And one of the ways we need to look into the world is extreme heat, extreme cold, immediate heat, immediate cold, like the exact weather patterns. And Russia's so big. Putin, the oligarchs, whoever's in control, whoever's responsible, whether they're doing right or wrong. Like, there's this really great, grand, grave responsibility. And coming from America, like, we have this incredible, like, the United States, the USA, the United States of America has basically the absolute beneficial, most perfect, full spectrum of climate. Like, we'd be hard to find a country, you know, they say on the British Empire, you know, and that's, but that's the thing about the language of the law is that the Commonwealths, or, you know, the Canadas and the Australias of the situation are a little bit funny and a little bit funky, and it doesn't quite fit, and it doesn't quite reach all the way down. America, the United States of America specifically, is the only country that in words reaches all the way down. Not in practice, yet the practice births from those words. The blooming comes from here. Why? I know we want to rip down those statues because of those slaveholders. That's a great thing. It's great. You want to tear down Washington. You want to tear down Lincoln, Jefferson, Madison. That's good. That's good because you have the passion and the spirit of rebellion, of righteousness. My appeal to you, and not in a conciliatory way, but in a reconciliatory way. If you were rebellious for the reasons I just stated, in a conciliatory way, if I were to appeal to you as the snake, I'd say, come, brother, let's find communion. Let's find commission. Coalition. And you were to rebel against that, you would be correct. Right? But from an overarching and underarching view, it's a little different. Because the Underground Railroad did not start in the 19th century. The Underground Railroad did not start and end in the 19th century. Though it's beautiful that the number 19 is associated with it. And I will leave it to you to figure out why. And you might hate me for smiling like that because you might think that I'm smiling at something that I'm not smiling at. I beg you, research. I beg you, look. The Underground Railroad stretches back. Slavery still exists today. The great... Okay. This is what happened at the end of the Civil War. Or basically, I mean, but it's an easy way to remember it. Roughly speaking, in a blurry resolution, from 1860 to 1960. What happened, and it's a good thing, but it ain't done. Between 1860 and 1960, what happened, roughly speaking, is that the Underground Railroad that stretches back 12,000 fucking years came above ground. And the above ground practices of deprivation went underground. So how long is the fight? Another 12,000 years? A switch happened between, roughly speaking, 1860 and 1960. Roughly speaking, give or take 100. So we're talking 1760, 2060, 1860, 2060, 1760, 2160. What I'm saying is somewhere in this point, the flip. Freeing women, you know. The thing between this whole deal with the war of the sexes. The war of the sexes is not the war between the sexes. The war of the sexes there's so much in the mythos. We're putting, I guess here's a simple way of saying it. It's best when we can say things most true, most simply, even if we leave a lot out. But sometimes when we leave a lot out, we're closer to the center, right? If this is the center, and it's this big, right? If this is the center, and the center is this big, if I have a bigger object over here that isn't the center, it doesn't do us any good because it's off center in a big way. So sometimes this big thing way off the center distracts us because it's so big. But it's a second order. It's not a... There are some swirls in our circumference that are first order dynamisms. But first order dynamisms always center around the center. Always. Always. Right. Wherever we find a center, I find a strong determination of the center being here because of the way in which the ears spiral out. They spiral out this way and spiral this way in a different way. Evenly this way, disproportionately this way. So, as we spiral out from here, we go up this much and we go down this much and we go up this much and we go down this much and we go up this much and we go down this much and we go up this much and we go down this much and so on. But in this way, we go up this much, 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 and we go up this much. Anyway, the only thing I really wanted to get to today between Russia and America is that, first of all, what we as the underlings, what we as regular people, what we as patriots, what we as pacifists, what we as hawks and turkey hawks, what we as every despicable piece of shit and every honorable West Point motherfucker on the face of the fucking planet who's ever existed. Every Naga priest. Is that not one of us has fixed it forever. One has laid the ground. But the war of peace persists. I mean, take it any way you want. The war for peace persists. Some people praise those who lay their life down with a gun. You put your life on the line with a gun. Others praise those who put their life down on the line without a gun. To the guns. And so often in public conversations, public dialogues, public debates, we set the guns against the guns, but we don't set the morality against the immorality, and we don't pit the efficacy versus the inefficacy. And we don't well pit empathy versus efficacy. Sympathy versus empathy, efficacy versus morality, morality versus sympathy. We've not well defined this shape. Maybe if you watch my last video, the simplest shape in the world. Not the simplest, the second simplest. There's the simplest thing that ever can be, right? The tetrahedron is essentially the predecessor to the Big Bang. The Big Bang can't happen without a tetrahedron. Stuff that in your pipe and smoke it. The Big Bang cannot happen without a tetrahedron. Can't. And the three-dimensional star David otherwise erroneously canonically, or what's the word? Well, tessellated octahedron. It's the three-dimensional star David, and motherfuckers call it the tessellated octahedron. Conventionally. Which is wrong. The three-dimensional Star of David is a special case. And it's a motherfucking special case. See my last video. Just saying. But yeah, there were a couple things that hit me today. And for this video to make sense, you'll have to basically watch like about 2 weeks plus or minus this date. So if you take this date and take plus or minus 2 weeks of this date and also my entire channel into consideration on these topics, specifically Russia, Ukraine, NATO, all that, and I'll look at my comments and so on. That will round out the picture. But yeah, a couple things I wanted to mention was the last time, because Putin talked with Macron, so Russia and France, Macron, Putin talked today, and they laid down some lines. And based on this other video I watched today that talked about the way in which France... See, this is the thing about law. If you're good enough with words and you're able to persuade, this is so important about logic and history. I watched a video today of something I'd never heard of before, but once I heard it, it made complete sense. It's how France pulled out of NATO, I don't know, in the 80s or 90s or whatever. But they did it in such a sophisticated, linguistic, lawful, persuasive way that they were able to pull themselves out of the command structure of NATO without pulling themselves out of either the responsibility of protection and also the requisite of protection. Like, France did this thing with words on paper that pulled them out of the command structure of NATO, yet they were still able to possess all of the protections of NATO while also still protecting NATO, but yet they claimed their independence from it, legalistically, right? I don't know, back in the 80s or 90s or whatever, whenever they pulled out of NATO, 95, whatever. I mean, I watched a 5-minute video on it. And it like totally fills in all the blanks of how important what happened like a few weeks ago, a month ago, whatever, between Macron and Putin. And like what happened today between Macron and Putin, right? Like without all that information, none of the rest makes any sense. So while everybody else on the entire fucking planet, on all these other, okay, so like what I'm saying is that I realized something through Google spontaneously that is more in depth than anything that was, I mean, by 2 orders of magnitude, what I'm saying here is more important than everything that was posted on the entire internet today. I will stake that claim. I'm not exactly correct, but I'm in the plus 80 percentile of that claim. Right? Why? I made a comment on another video, but about a week ago when Putin made his hour-long speech, which a lot of people in my countries called rambling, which I couldn't believe, because the main political figures of my life of the last 6 years were Trump and Biden. I like listening to both of them. I actually think Trump is the greatest. I mean, he's a master of rhetoric. Master. An intuitive master. Like, have no mistake. You know, Trump's tongue lashes between realms. Make no mistake, you know. And Biden, well, the only thing I'll say about Biden is this, is that at his inaugural speech, when he proclaimed he won, you know, and I'm not saying he didn't, I'm just saying, you know, at that moment, nobody said nothing about it, but it happened. He said the last words of his victory were, God bless America, or God save America, or God bless America. And the last thing he said after being elected and agreed upon that he was president was, God save our church. And nobody on either side of the religious debate, people don't realize the religious debate doesn't meet the same center as the political debate. Unless you get into a fucking 3-dimensional object that turns 4-dimensionally, but not just on one axis, but 3 axes, 6-dimensionally. Lined up like a motherfucker. But anyway, in that hour-long speech that Putin gave last week, man, when he says, I never told anybody this before. I've never said this before. Bingo, 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 bingo. Tied for first place, right? Russia, USA. Okay, USA has been kind of dominant, you know. Between Russia and USA, it's like they each have enough nuclear weapons to destroy everything. So they're tied. Our tie with Russia, right? We think we're above Russia because all these numbers and all these economics, we don't realize we're tied with Russia. Like, we're tied for first place with Russia, period. That's what Putin is trying to point out to us, right? Because when he speaks, he's speaking to all the oligarchs that have just gotten their shit cut off. Those oligarchs have power on Putin. Do they have less power now? Well, when Putin spoke 5 years ago, when he's speaking to the world, he's speaking to the oligarchs, the Russian people. He's speaking to the Americans, all of Europe. They really are like alone, isolated. Like we hate them, we're mean to them. Everybody loves having an enemy. But I've been watching just regular people videos from Russia for the last 15 years. And like one of the things like that just came up in the thing is like, for all of us who love and praise the West, well, where's the West go back to? Well, for those of us who love and praise the West, everybody's always talking Plato, Socrates, Greece, you know. The whole idea now. I'll remind you that the father of science, not the father of science, the godfather of science, Francis Bacon, called Plato and Aristotle the driftwood on the ocean of philosophy. Francis Bacon, I didn't say it, he did. Socrates is the grand or the god or the great-great-grandfather of philosophy. You know, like, in a way, like, good for you for getting into the discussion, right? But if you're 45, 44, 46, and you're still praising Socrates, get the fuck out, man! Heraclitus.